Howdy there, folks. How you doing today? It's only Tuesday, right? Already, what a long week it has been. Just popping in with a few quick things. I know people are really afraid of, the chaos agents out there. Don't be. Reuters just had a poll with 1,200 and some people, which 1,200 and some people do not the 330 plus million population that we have represent, but okay. Oh, we're sliding into chaos. 4 out of 5 people. Okay. You have to look at who's doing the chaos, or who's creating the chaos. Again, as I mentioned in previous videos, the ones usually with the hammers doing the break-in, then they pull back and go, oh, look, it's broke, we can fix it. They're the one doing the break-in. As you have seen, a lot of, I call them chaos agents. That's just my terminology for it. They're trying to get you emotionally triggered out of fear. And some of it, nobody has any reason to be afraid of anything. I don't see, political violence, yes, or fair violence from, because of political views. Yeah, people should be concerned, but all the culture war stuff, that's exactly what it is. It's fear-based. It's not even real. And they're all things that we've dealt with before. They're going on about LGBTQ rights, and didn't we already have this back in the 80s and the 90s? Didn't we already have it? Using their trigger words, transgender, or sexual orientation, and this, that, and the other, and it's like, didn't we do this already? Who's not evolving? Lest ye forget, folks, Rocky Horror Picture Show. Hey, the Romans wore togas. They were dresses. Let's just call them what they are. You see what I'm saying? This stuff has been around forever. You can frame it however they want to frame it for fear, but don't. It's a culture war. And they're trying to use that to incite fear. But another thing, I saw, the Democratic Mendez, he got senator convicted today. Guilty. Good. Guilt goes around. Like I said, karma comes back. When there's corruption, it should be weeded out. But when you read Project 2025, they think the whole government's corruption. All the people in government are corrupt. No, the Citizens United corrupted the government. That's where the government became the grift. Because people get paid. They can go there and make bank. The decent people who are true public servants. They're not out taking that big billionaire money like the GOP is doing. Just saying. Who's puppets? Billionaire owns the GOP, the billionaire class. But I wanted to bring it back around. Just to some things I was reading. I picked little sections out of Project 2025 to describe and maybe simplify it for people when they say, oh, they're just going to send things like reproductive rights back to the states. Here's where they're not. It's called the 14th Amendment. There's a line on there at the end of the 14th that if I go through it and find it, the Congress shall have the power, Section 2 of the 14th, the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So what that means, basically, folks, is when they say send it back to the states, that basically means, oh yeah, reproductive rights. We can take that one for instance, since it's a popular topic and it's a very one of a lot of conversation these days, since Dobbs was overturned, or Dobbs overturned Roe, and Casey, and women's health back in 16, basically, all three of them. Yeah, and somebody brought this up to me today, I was talking to, about, oh, you know, they're going to send it back to the states. Okay, but the 14th is how they get around that. So when I say Project 2025 is for nationwide, it is, through use of the 14th. Because Congress shall enforce any legislation they pass on the federal level. So therefore, federal supersedes state. You see how that goes? So when they say, "Oh, they don't want a national ban," no, they're no, they're telling you how they're going to do it. This is page 6, and I quote from Project 2025. Finally, the conservatives should be gratefully celebrated. The greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning Roe v. Wade. A decision that for 5 decades made the mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the death of tens of millions of unborn children. But the Dobbs decision was just the beginning. Conservatives in the states and in Washington, including the next conservative administration, should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. How would they do that? If it goes back to the states, if they're going to push every jurisdiction, they use the 14th. See how they do that? In particular, the next conservative president should work with the Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support by deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life and vigorously complying with statutory bans on federal funding of abortion. Conservatives should ardently pursue these pro-life and pro-family policies while recognizing the many women who find themselves in immensely difficult and often tragic situations and the heroism of every choice to become a mother. Alternative options to abortion, especially adoption, should receive federal and state support. So, people, everybody used to think fetal personhood, that used to be a fringe thing out there in the world. And the Comstock Act, even though it's a valid law on the books, nobody's been enforcing it for 100 and some years. Guess how they do these things? Through the 14th. So going back to the states, poke them. It's a lie. They just said it. They'll use the federal government. How are they going to use the federal government? The Constitution is to, if you think about it, the Constitution is written in such a way as to say the rights that people have and what the government can't do to them in some ways. You cannot prohibit speech, freedom of religion, protest, press, whatever. So you have the Constitution that, gives people rights and says what the government both can and cannot do, what exceeds their authority. But the 14th gives them a lot of authority. Gives the Congress the power to make laws, to legislate, and enforce. There are bills right now, go look them up, in the Congress for fetal personhood. They're trying to push. So as far as reproductive rights go, oh, they're going to send it back to the states. No, they ain't. They just said they're not. How they do that? The 14th. Federal supersedes state. See how they do that there? How do you think they get away with a lot of these things? The 14th. Because it's one of the few statements in the Constitution that actually gives the government the power on a federal level to mandate to those states below them. That's how they do that. So I hope that makes it a little bit more clear for folks. I was watching something and I knew that, but I don't know why I couldn't form the way to explain it, because I'm reading Project 2025 as a national plan, and I'm picking pages out to read to you guys, but to me it's a national plan because I know off the top of my head federal supersedes state. I know why. I know from the 14th they do. But I, again, naively just think everybody knows what's all in the Constitution and how it connects. And even though we know it in our heads and why we know it, it's just that connection to make it stick with folks. And I was listening to a podcast and they made that point and I was like, yeah, oh duh. Like I'm not really framing it in the right way. I already know, but I'm just assuming other people know or would think that, or it would click with them, and maybe it doesn't, because again, I not just naively think I automatically know. I shouldn't expect everybody to know, or that it would click that way for them. So that's why it's important that, again, reading those SCOTUS decisions and the overturning of precedent and reading that stuff makes a difference. See how things were stripped and became unconstitutional, and it puts a lot of power on the judiciary, and in essence kind of merging it with the executive, which is no. But how, you want to know how Project 2025 gets all this stuff through? It is through the 14th. Even though they say they want to make the government smaller, yeah, Department of Education and EPA and all the stuff that protects people. No, we're going to get rid of that. But we'll inflate it over here. And that's why they say, like, there's a lot of contradictory stuff people mention. And it's very boring language. And somebody said that to me today. I was speaking with a friend of mine. And like, oh, there's just so much. And it's like, yeah. And there's some that is completely contradictory because different people wrote different sections. But when you think about it as the overall whole, how they do get around a lot of things is using the 14th. And like I said, you can go look up bills that are, out there and floating in the world, where fetal personhood used to be a fringe theory. Their state's trying to do it now. Not just states, but the federal government. They're sitting in Congress trying to do that. And bringing back the Comstock Act, which basically banned pornography, but you could make anything practically pornography if it comes to medical equipment for women's health. Oh, the transport of it. Even though there's laws against, you cannot ban transport between states. Oh, if it's official and federal, that, oh no, you can't do that, then that goes out the window too. There's needles to thread there. So it's important that people know about these things, and that's how they get around them. And maybe that when you're reading the stuff from Project 2025, even though it seems contradictory, you have to look in the broader picture on how they're wording it and what they say and what they don't say. And the vagueness of some of it is like the offices they're going to open of race discrimination and race. The vagueness of it. Well, what exactly does that mean? Because that, to me, seems like there's a negative connotation in the wording and all of the stuff surrounding it, and it's not going to be positive for anybody, and that's just going to be targeting you on a specified level. Again, that's Nazi stuff there, people. That's Hitler stuff. I mean, I'm using that reference because it's one we can all relate to. A lot of people don't know as much about history. I mean, different eras and different times that people were persecuted. I mean, and we can even go back to the Inquisition. You know, we've all heard of it. And history taught you to fear the witches, but they never taught you to fear the men who burned them. Fear the men who burned them. Because there's always an agenda, and you should be more afraid of them. To use an example many people have heard of. There have been other dictators throughout time. And you had Stalin, Pol Pot, all of that. I mean, even Mao. And in the other genocide, you don't hear about when all the Tibetans and the Buddhists were killed back when they were trying to make China a communist country. How many millions of people died? Because of an agenda and control. So I want folks to think about these things, and it's not to cause fear, it's not to cause be alarmist, and not to think, oh, the chaos is coming. No, you have the power to stop the chaos. It's called vote. Go get off your ass and vote. And the chaos that's being stirred is by chaos agents that want that chaos because they want to swoop in and say, oh, only I can save you. No, we save ourselves. We have in the past. We can do it in the future. Nothing is written. So that's why I don't be concerned, absolutely. But don't be afraid. Fear is a waste of time when you're trying to save yourself. You can't go from an emotional, reaction. That gets you in trouble. So be practical, be realistic, be level-headed. Keep your wits about you. Just don't go out of fear. Don't. And it's not like I'm some invincible person talking that, or I. No, you have to do a lot of introspection when you get different things in your life that have led you to someplace, whether you go through challenges, let's just say, to make it very broad, you learn to look at fear in a different way. And I just don't want people to get afraid of things. Like I said, do your research, do your homework, call the media on stuff, call your politicians on stuff. But I was really thinking about that today. About I automatically know how they're going to do Project 2025 and make it go national. And I forget that sometimes I need to be further explanatory in how they're going to do it. And maybe that would click with people. It's the 14th. Yeah, there's in there about states' rights, but when the Fed says do it, the Fed, they're the top. Fed says do it, you do it. States have their unique way of weaving, as within the voter suppression and all of that. I mean, I think Nevada, GOP just kind of lost a case there about trying to get voters off the rolls. If I'm not mistaken, you can go look into it. But GOP lost. It amounts to voter suppression, trying to kick people off, or not use the votes or whatever. It's their way of suppressing, and they lost. In Nevada, I think it was yesterday or the day before. So they do try to weave these things in there. That's why we the people, we participate. And if you want the government to go forward and do better and protect you as people, then you can't let the chaos agents win. And here's another one that I can maybe clarify for people about Social Security. Our side wants to keep Social Security get the rich to pay more because they haven't really been. They have a cap at a certain income. It's like, nah, maybe y'all need to kick in a little bit more, so people can keep the benefits they have. Project 2025 wants to cut them, make them harder to get, like raise the age limit to work, and make you work longer. Not tax the rich. Take it out of your check, so you get the cuts, and then the age limit gets raised. So that is a cut. No matter how they frame it, it's a cut. The solvency that the Biden administration is trying to get in there and to maintain what is there is by raising that cap for the rich so people can keep it as it is and put more money into it. The GOP's way is, nope, we're not going to do that. We're just going to cut your benefits. It'll stay solvent if we cut your benefits and we raise the age of retirement. Technically, that's a cut because people already on it, or those who say, maybe you're going to turn 62, 65, and you want to retire. Oh no, we're going to put it to 70. I mean, I don't remember what the age is off the top of my head, but you see where I'm coming from. That's a cut to you because then you can't access those services and that retirement that you paid for. That's your money. That's not an entitlement. That's your money. It's kind of like 401ks, like you get the employer match and stuff. It's the same kind of, not the same, but a basic just is, okay, yeah, you pay in all this. And, hey, maybe you don't have quite enough, then, the government picked that up, maybe because you live longer or whatever. But I'm just making very oversimplified points. That's the GOP's plan. That's Project 2025's plan. We're going to cut the benefits. Yeah, it'll stay solvent if we cut the benefits and raise the retirement age. That's their plan. They'll save it. Maybe. That's if they don't privatize it. Like I said before in a video, if they privatize it, you can bet your butt and they're going to cut. If they wanted to cut it to keep it solvent and to keep it afloat, privatizing it will cut it even more. So, yeah, that is a cut, people. Cutting VA veterans benefits and cutting SNAP and medical for not everybody. White families will still get favor over people of color. Yeah. So, I'm just saying, think about these things. How do they get around it? They get around it by the 14th because the federal has power over the states. So when they say, oh, we want to go back to the states, ask them about those lines in there that said, say stuff like I just read about in every jurisdiction. How did they do that? They do that by the 14th. Keep that in mind, folks. Again, go read your Constitution. But I mistakenly just think I correlate, and it doesn't. I am assuming that jives for other people that may not think about it and read as much as I do on this stuff. And it was like somebody brought that up, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should get that out there in a more simplistic view, in a more simplistic way for people to view it through that lens. Of like, oh yeah, that's how they get around these things. Yeah, they say states' rights, but when they want something federal across jurisdictions, yeah. That's why Project 2025 is a federal plan, people. So, it ain't about states' rights. It says about returning the power to the people, but it's the people they want to give that power to. Again, don't want to represent, they want to rule. It's the people who they deem. And if they're rounding up or getting rid of or suppressing all of the people they don't feel that are in their quote-unquote group, like Christian nationalism, or you're a woman or again, a minority, LGBTQ, elderly, disabled, if you are anything they can other, you are not in their group. That's where the power to the people goes. Just their preferred set of people. So just remember that, folks. I will bring you some more. I've been reading more on it. I'm just picking stuff here and there out of it that I think, you know, people may want to keep in their mind about how they do it. It's not hard to see. And Trump says, I don't know about Project 2025. Again, cross-reference the names. They're in his inner circle now, or have been. Yeah, 2022 Heritage Foundation dinner. Go find the clip. Yeah, he knows about it. How did he say it? You know, the Heritage Foundation, slurring too, was coming up with this plan that will get our movement, your movement, out there. In if you give us the mandate to save America. These are little phrases he said in that clip about Project 2025. He didn't call it Project 2025, but it's out there. Theo Hughley posted it on Insta about 4 days ago. You can search it in Google and you can find it. And actually the mandate for leadership, the proper name, was instituted back, again, I said this has always been around. It's always floated out there under different names, different administrations. Mandate for leadership was back during the Reagan years. It was 3,000 pages back then, but and like 2,000 policies. A lot of which did get instituted. We see the trappings of that we're still trying to undo today with Reaganomics and all of that. Yeah, that did so well back then, didn't it? Yeah, because Reagan was behind it. But you've had more modern times and more recent times. You had the Contract with America is the one that jumps to my mind, under Newt Gingrich and all that. But yeah, this was already out there. It's been in some form or fashion or another for across many administrations for decades. And it was put in under Reagan, and many policies were enacted. And again, we're still trying to dig ourselves out from a lot of those, especially on the economic front, that have favored the rich and caused the income inequality gap that we have, where you've got the top percentage of people basically owning all the rest of us. I mean, it's just crazy, and it's why people are struggling so hard. And we're still trying to undo a lot of that to make it more equality of income between the top and the bottom. Yeah, they said we want to go back to the 50s. Yes, let's do, with the tax rates that were there. And the top earners got 90% tax. Yeah, let's go back to that. Tell them that, yeah. We'll take the 50s again if you're going to give us those taxes back. Because the income equality was more, it wasn't so inflated in the differences between. It was more constricted, as in there was more income equality. You could have a household that one person worked in and somebody stayed home and all of that, because that income gap wasn't quite what it is today. And it was different back then. And then, you know, those are the Eisenhower years and Kennedy and stuff. So I'm just saying, these are things to think about. It's important to know history. And somebody else and I were talking today, you know, like people don't have time. No, I know people don't have time. And there was a time when I worked multiple jobs and I didn't have time. And I was it wasn't a purposeful low of information. I worked all the time. I read when I could. I tried to keep up with the news and what was going on. And I would see the snippets and, the chess pieces are moving and all that. But as far as my passion for reading of like history and different things and keeping up with different, I'm still reading that book on the law, because I take a little bit of time every night before I go to bed and I read a little bit. helps calm myself down because I don't sleep right anyway. And it helps wind down a little bit. If I would just lay there tossing and turning anyway, might as well make use of my time. But I know not everybody has the opportunity to do that. And take that time and look back and see how the threads and the different points connect in time. That's why that documentary was really good. A friend of mine said something about God and Country is another documentary that's very similar to Bad Faith. So checking that out, they recommended it. So I can't remember if I saw it or not. I really can't. They all start to run together after a while. Because I've seen different documentaries on them over the years, and I can't always remember the names. And I used to be so good at that, but head injury once. Don't have the photographic memory I used to. Still have a pretty good one, but it ain't what it used to be. And hey, age creeps in there too. But other shout outs to places to follow on information would be Mark Elias on his socials and Democracy Docket. It's free. It can give you the skinny. His law firm fights for voters and trying to get over in more equality and get away from the voter suppression, stuff like that. He's a good follow. That's another thing to look into. But there are several places, Red Wine and Blues, breaking down, like you can go look about Project 2025 and different tools and resources they have to help you wade through that as well. It's really a grassroots organization of women. Seneca Project, like I said before. But these are all things, folks, I hope you take into consideration. Don't get afraid. The chaos agents that are out there stirring the pot are doing it for a reason. They want you to be afraid so that you will fall in line. Kind of like the unity speech from the right. Come over to our side so you'll shut up. No, don't shut up. Don't shut up. Again, keep it peaceful, people. But don't shut up. There are more of us than there are of them. This is where a minority wants to rule the majority. And we don't be having kings here. So that's why it's important to read the SCOTUS decisions and see how they all connect, especially like the homeless one. Making that a crime, yeah, in that place, but when they start going rounding up people, it could be tent cities, I think was what the Project 2025 calls it, but look at the prison pipeline too. Privatizing of prisons makes them money. See all these pipelines? Yeah. I'm not saying it's just something to think about. How all of these stripping of people's basic humanity in these decisions and making women second-class citizens, and that's another thing, the wording. You hear mother in there, and you see it once in that one page I read about page 451. Married woman. That's the only time you see that in that whole page about families, unless it's the one about parents being ruled unfit, and then it's parents. It's like, don't just look at what they put in, look at what they leave out. Or even second-class citizens in their document. How quaint, right? Not really, but I'm being a smartass. It just, keep in mind these things, folks. Just really do. But that's if you want to have a more simpler way of understanding how, if Trump says states' rights and blah blah blah. No, remember, he got puppet masters. He ain't his own man. They're footing the bill for this protein they put in place. He got puppet masters. He's telling you what you want to hear so you'll come to their side and not think he's not going to be a tyrant, which he will be. So we have the power to stop that, people. Let's make it happen, shall we? All right, well, everybody have a good one. and I will see you on the next one. I was reading last night, and I was laying there and I shut the light off. I'm going to go to sleep. They're saying about, I want to do the healthcare podcast today, and the SCOTUS one, and more news. But to remember, don't let up on J.D. Vance. In his book, he kind of did diss his people, and he got out and got away, and now he wants to be with the in crowd. And remember, Trump ran with Pence before. Why isn't he running with Pence again? Oh, January 6th come to mind, people? Keep these things in mind. Vance is just a sucko. He wants to be with the in crowd, and he wanted to throw his people under the bus. And that brings me back around to what I was saying about a post I made about, us paying for the, tax cuts were just another way to, stick it to us to pick up the bill for them, because they're not paying. And somebody wanted to school me on tax rates and this, that, and the other, and it was a troll, but it was still the point. It was like, and then said I was of the envy class. Like, never heard of that one before. That's a new one on me. I don't envy the rich. God, no, I don't. I don't envy the rich. I think, unlike everybody else, that I would just want to be comfortable and breathe and not worry so much. I mean, if I won $1 million tomorrow, I'd retire. But I'd pay my bills off. I don't want flashy things or big things, so maybe take a trip, go travel a little bit. I sponsor elephants and other wildlife. And my last one was in Kenya at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. I haven't re-upped. I have to do that. And then when it's Thailand and stuff like that, I mean, I would give my money away. If I didn't need it, I would give it away to help, mostly wildlife, because we're taking so much from them, and we don't stop to think about the destruction that we're causing as people. So that's what I would probably do. And when they called me the envy class, it was like, no, you're totally missing the point. I come from poverty, but I ain't throwing my people under the bus, neither. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do that. J.D. Vance threw his people under the bus with his book. So, there you go. In the movie. And I couldn't get through all of it. I really couldn't. I know several people have made the same comment. I think Titus said the same thing when I was watching it. Like, he couldn't get through it either. It was on a post or something on Threads, and I was like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one. But yeah, I come from poverty, but I don't throw my people under the bus. I work in social services now. I try to help my folks as much as I can. I have that compulsion within me that I couldn't live in the manner that I did for the rest of my life. And there were other factors other than money surrounding it. There was other things as well, which is stuff I wanted to get into about addiction and things like that. I mean, and domestic violence and things. I really want to bring those things up from a personal point of view, to meet with people where they are, because I do know about those things and have been, unfortunately, on the receiving end of many things. And it wasn't that I thought there was something wrong with being poor. I mean, I live pretty basically now, but Van seems to want to throw his folks under the bus, and I'm just not that way, and that's why I thought that little class envy class, I thought that was really strange, and I was like, well, that's a new one I've never heard. But no, I don't envy. Like I said, anybody want to go make their bank, go make their bank. More power to you. It's how you respond to that you've been given and what you do with it. And when you just go, who needs a $10 million house? You don't. Nobody does. It's waste. What are you doing? I mean, that's your prerogative. More power to you. Do what you do, but there are so many other things in the world that, for what we as human beings have done, that there's people who could use that help. There are our planet can use that help. Our wildlife could use that help. There's a lot of things that could be better served by somebody who would take that money and go throw it on, something like that, or a flashy car or whatever. It just, I'm not judging. It's not my particular cup of tea. Travel is about the only extravagant thing I would do. Yeah, maybe an old Shelby Mustang. That might be. I do like old cars. I do like old muscle cars. Corvette Stingrays. Yeah, they were the bomb back in the day. I really enjoy those. And I probably wouldn't, because I would never drive it. I need to go anywhere anymore. But it would be cool. It would be cool. If I could even just go at a racetrack one day, so maybe drive one, that would be like a little treat for me. But I don't want those things. I think maybe the most extravagant, other than travel, I would find a place in the country away from the things of man. That's what I would do. Something away from the things of man, with lots and lots of space that I could protect the wildlife. If I could do that back at my pap's place before it got sold, I would have loved to have been able to have the opportunity to do that. And then if something, at some point would ever happen to me, then it'd go back into being some reserve or some park that could never be touched. That would be my goal. That would be the most extravagant thing I would do, other than travel. So I could go see my elephants, the wildlife, things like that. But other than that, no. And I don't envy. I mean, if I can get there to do that at some point in my life, I will. If I don't, I'll catch it on the go round, Life always. The universe recycles. So, don't forget that includes people too. All right, folks. Y'all take care and have a good evening. And don't let the news get you down. Yeah, read, educate yourself, be practical, be realistic. But think about how these things could directly affect you. And don't respond in fear. And don't sit there and cower. You got a spine. Stand up. Use it. Use it at the voting booth. Blue up and down, because there are more of us than there are of them. All right. Peace out.